There's a pretty one, Ulysses. There it is.
Good morning. Hello, BookTube. I'm Sean the Book Maniac. Welcome back to my channel. Here I am. I was going to start off by bluntly saying the things I do for you people, but no, actually, this is my own harebrained idea. It's just before 7 a.m. and I came out long sleeve shirt but no coat, and as soon as I stepped out of my apartment, lugging, I don't know how many books, my tripod, my microphone, everything, I thought, oh, it's too cold. I should go back and get a jacket. I didn't. Haven't had to wear a jacket yet. It's supposed to get up to about 18 today, but it's maybe 13 or 14 now. And this is going to be a long Friday read, so let's get started. It's not your fault, it's my fault, and the sun will come out. It's peeking its head out behind a cloud, so. Hot coffee out of the vending machine. It's a thing in Japan starting in the fall, and so this is the first cup of hot coffee I've had this autumn. I don't know if I want to open it. I think I just want to use it as a hand warmer, but no, I need coffee. Oof. So I would say that I have probably had the best, most stimulated up to my nipples reading week of 2020, and I've had some damn good reading weeks before. So this one was awesome. I accomplished most of the ambitious reading goals I had last week, so you probably thought I was crazy, and this Friday Reads will probably confirm that. I really went the extra mile to finish a whole bunch of books. So I have finished 7 books. And that was awesome, and it just kind of reminded me of not my grad school days, because grad school sucked so bad, but my undergrad days in English, when I needed to read 8 hours a day to keep up with the amount of reading 19th century novels, this and that and the other thing, and how much I love that. I mean, I just need somebody to pay me to read all day long, and I would be happier than just very, very happy. There's a little bit of the sun. I have not had time to digest what I've read, so there's a couple of buddy reads that I have checked in preliminarily, but haven't had time, and will take that time on Sunday to really sit with those novels, kind of page back through what I read, really listen deeply to what my buddy reading partners had to say about them, and give a more substantive follow-up, because I didn't compromise on the concentration that I brought to my reading, but I just have not allowed any breathing room whatsoever to sit with these books. So today's Friday Reads is going to be very much a hot take, and I am going to be doing full reviews for many of these. All right. First one I finished was Swimming in the Dark by Tomasz Jadrowski. This was a buddy read with Ollie Bliss, and I love this book so much. It was a 5-star read, and I have very little bad to say about it, obviously, if it's a 5-star read. I'm going to be doing a full review. This did not capture my heart the way Shirky Bain did, but this was an excellent, powerful novel, especially for a debut. Powerful coming-out story set in the dying days of the communist regime in Poland, and captured the universality, at least in the Western world, of that coming-out experience. I related so much to the young man's shame, fear, and lust, and love. Perfectly captured all of that. And then, situated as it was in that moment in time, in that part of the world, just brought Warsaw alive during, like I say, the dying days, during the Solidarity uprisings and the politics of that, and how that intersected with his sexuality. Beautiful. The breeziness of it felt like mostly positive, but a little bit too rushed. I could feel the author not catching his breath, and that maybe he needed to catch his breath. But I loved it so much. I can't wait to see what Tomasz Jadrowski does next. I will be doing a full review. Speaking of full reviews, I was whining. Me whine? I was whining about Vlogmas. I couldn't remember the name. Vlogmas. I was throwing shade. Do you throw shade? I was shading. I was doing something about Vlogmas. It was mostly tongue-in-cheek, but I do find that BookTube is so clotted. It's so constipated with all these silly Vlogmas videos that everybody feels a need to put up on a daily basis, that nobody really has time to watch anything. So I've decided that's when I'm going to put up a whole bunch of reviews, because nobody watches reviews anyway, so that's a good time to put them up. And what I mean is, of course, some of you watch my reviews, and I'm not whining about the fact that most of you don't. It is what it is. Most people, myself included, I don't watch very many single book reviews. So I'm not complaining. People watch what they want to watch. I love doing single book reviews, and as I think I've said in different contexts over time here on BookTube, it's the single book reviews that stand the test of time on BookTube. Those are the videos of mine that get comments a year later, 2 years later, and now 3 years later, whereas nobody watches Friday Reads from more than 2 weeks ago. Certainly not from a year ago. You have to be a hardcore Sean the Book Maniac, or whoever it is, Greg of Supposedly Fun fan, to go back and watch the complete oeuvre, the complete set of videos that we put out. Historically, from 2 years ago, people don't do that, but people do look up individual reviews, so I feel like it pays off. I'm not sure I'm comfortable with that verb, but those videos will have a shelf life, a posterity that this video won't. So yes, I'm gonna dump a bunch of those on you, I think, in December, because almost all of the books I finished today I want to do full reviews on, so this is being one of them. Oh, I'm a little hyper. I think I had a good sleep last night, but I've been awake since about 5. And I'm not cold anymore. I finished this piece of gay trash from 1881, Sins of the Cities of the Plain by Jack Saul, a gay erotic novel from the UK. It was trash, and I loved it. It was historically fascinating. It was sexually stimulating, actually, in places. So I am going to do a full review, shedding more light on the historical interest aspect of my experience of this book rather than the erotic stimulation. Don't worry, but it's worth a read, or at least knowing something about it. So I'm going to do a review. Yeah, it was a memorable experience. Oh my goodness. Before I move on to the next book, let me just say we're at the very end of Victober. This was by far my most successful, most rewarding, most amazing Victober of the lot. I just had an incredible time, and I chose books that not only a couple of you thought were strange choices, but I myself thought, oh, maybe this is going to be kind of a mediocre experience. It was anything but. And so I'm absolutely delighted to tell you that this, Hellbeck of Bannisdale by Mary Augusta Ward, referred to in her day as Mrs. Humphrey Ward, this was a 5-star read. I absolutely loved it. It's not destined, its days of being destined for anything are history, but it deserves readers. It deserves modern readers. I thought it was an extremely competent, delightful, fascinating novel. I have already filmed a full review, so I won't go into details, but I am somebody, you might have gathered about me over the years, that I have an allergy to Christian fiction. This was a very religiously focused novel that spoke to me deeply, and I loved it. Stay tuned! What a shock. What a pleasant, pleasant surprise. I finished Burnt Sugar by Avni Doshi. This was a buddy with Joe Smith. And this, again, like the Swimming in the Dark book, the buddy reads, I haven't really held up my end of the bargain for the last chunk of the novel because I have been just reading and reading and reading. So I'm going to sit with my reaction, but I can tell you now, kind of a hot take, that I absolutely loved it. It's Booker worthy, 5-star read, stunning for a debut. I'm not going to do a full review, so these will be my comments. I didn't love it as much as Kieran of Katie Books did, but I loved it. It reminded me in some ways of Muriel Sparks' The Driver's Seat, in the sense of the narrator was so unstable that I could never trust her version of what was going on, and what a trip that was. Because ostensibly it's about a mother-daughter relationship where the mother has some kind of dementia, presumably Alzheimer's, but I never really trusted anything. And so I was on the edge of my seat, especially at the end. I'm not going to say anything about the ending, but I can't remember the last time I was on the edge of my seat waiting to see what terrible climax this novel was going to come to. Oh, really stunning. And the thing that I love the most about this, and this is a gift that Kieran of KD Books gave me in our Booker chat, he told me that I think she published it in India under a different title, Girl in White Cotton. And then, if I'm remembering what he told me, I know I've got the gist of it right. She then worked on it for a further 6 years, and I mean, just completely revamped it. What I'm not sure I'm clear about is whether that was before the Indian publication or after. That part I don't remember, but I think that all debut novelists should be forced to do the same. I am sick of reading shitty debuts. They all need 6 more years, people. Boy, this was amazing. Beyond that, I'm just like, what the hell did I just read? Fascinating. Avni Doshi. Holy smokes! Joe asked me, and I haven't gotten back to Joe. Joe said, well, Sean, you love this one so much too, so if this one wins the Booker, are you going to pledge to become a Booker 2021 groupie? No. My inane pledge of several weeks ago was that if Shugi Bain wins the Booker, I will become a 2021 bookie grouper. I'm not extending it to this one, but if this one won, I would not be displeased. This one didn't capture my heart the way Shugi Bain did, but this is amazing. I also finished the Queen Victoria biography by Lytton Strachey. I think I mispronounced his name last week. I love this too, but I give it 4 stars because I was not convinced by his stance on Queen Victoria in terms of he really represented her as being kind of reliant, if not under the thumb of her advisors, her prime ministers, and her husband, in a way that I think reflects the decade in which this biography was written, in the early 1920s, more than it does the actual true history. But it was a fascinating, beautifully written biography, and I've already filmed a full review, and, it's Queen Victoria. Stay tuned for my review. And I finished the audiobook of the rather hokily titled Love After Love by Ingrid Persaud, but the hokiness stops there. I think the title would put readers off. It put me off for a long time until I forget what I heard about it that made me give it a try. I did it on audio without the benefit of the text. Despite that, I felt like I was immersed in it. I am going to do a full review. 5-star read. Just amazing. It was my belated Caribathon read in that I didn't start it until about a month ago. And Caribathon was way back earlier this year. And the book that I chose for Caribathon didn't work out so well, but this one was a huge success. It's a debut novel by a Trinidadian female writer, Ingrid Persaud. She doesn't live in Trinidad anymore. She lives in Barbados. She divides her time between Barbados and the UK. She's had an academic career, and boy, that doesn't show up in the writing. I always get nervous when academics try their hand at fiction because it usually doesn't go well. This was beautifully written and took me right into the heart of Trinidadian society and culture, and one of the main characters was a gay man, and boy, did she ever get gay men from a kind of a global, universal perspective, which I know you're not supposed to say these days, but I do, but also within the cultural context of Trinidad, the threat of violence, the homophobia, just pitch perfect, beautiful novel. I would say it's more a commercial novel than a literary novel, but it's that Venn diagram, it was my sweet spot. I loved it so much. You're going to be hearing much more from me about this. I will be evangelizing about this one. You must give it a try and do it on audio. The author narrates the audiobook. Loved it. Broke my heart. And finally, and this one I think I might just run out of steam and not do a full review of it. It merits a full review because nobody has ever done a review on BookTube, and I've never heard any Victober people ever talk about it, but I didn't do a thorough search. I finished Red Pottage by Mary Chumley last night, 1898 novel, I think it was 1898, and I almost loved it. I really liked it. It sagged a bit in the middle third, but that I am never quite sure that that's a fair criticism when I'm reading 18 books at one time and don't pick a book up very often, so that's very tentative criticism. I thought it was really good. I think it deserves to be read. I've told you the enigmatic opening where 2 men, a cuckold and his wife's lover, draw straws, and whoever gets the shorter one promises to commit suicide within several weeks. And so that's the premise of the story, and it goes from there. A fabulous portrayal of female friendship that I don't remember anybody else doing to quite that depth and quite as well. A circle of friends, intellectual ferment, a woman writer is one of the main characters. It took me a long time to really get the prose style, and by the end, I think I have about 5 or 6 Sunday sentences for you this weekend. So there was a wit to it. I want to know a lot more about Mary Chumley. There was something kind of naive and, if I can put it this way, over earnestly satirical. Does that make sense? I might edit that out. But it really worked for me. I think it's going to be a novel that I come back to. There was so much in it about the independent single women and adultery and sexuality and highbrow, lowbrow. Some of the satire was hilarious, but it was gentle enough that nobody came off as just being kind of a whipping boy for her satirical pen. And Red Pottage, it's just kind of an ugly title, and I didn't even know what pottage was until yesterday. I googled it. It's like some kind of a stew that poor people have been eating for about 1,000 years, where you just keep adding stuff to the stew on the fire for days and weeks at a time. It never stops cooking. You just keep adding. It's kind of interesting. And there is a biblical story about red pottage, which I still don't quite understand, so I'm going to have to study it a little bit more, that the title comes from, but those are some scattered thoughts on Red Pottage by Mary Chumley. Quite highly recommended by Sean the Book Maniac. So that's what I finished. I did very well. So in terms of Victober, I only have Vanity Fair, which I might be almost half through. I'm still hoping to finish it by tomorrow night and read very little else but it. And I haven't made much progress at all with George Eliot's Felix Holt, which I will read at a more leisurely pace and maybe finish up in November. But that's my Victober. What a fabulous Victober I had, among other things that I was reading. Whew, no bails. And so what else do I have? Oh, yes, so now, God, I have so much to tell you in terms of what I'm starting, because I have cleaned so much off my plate. Nonfiction November starts on Sunday, and here's what I know I'll be starting from my Nonfiction November TBR. Loyal Till Death, Indians in the Northwest Rebellion by Blair Stonechild and Bill Weiser. A work of Western Canadian history told maybe for the first time from a thoroughly Indigenous perspective. The 1885 rebellion in what became Saskatchewan was a seminal event in the history of the region of Canada where I came from, and I learned a bullshit colonialist view of it in school. Now I'd like to find out what really happened. Can't wait for this one. And other than that, to start some of my buddy reads, John Meacham's His Truth is Marching On, John Lewis and the Power of Hope, buddy read with Britta Bowler. This is going to be incredible. I will be devastated if it's not incredible, because what an incredible story. John Lewis. God, I can't believe. Probably the shittiest thing that happened in 2020 is we lost John Lewis. And that's saying a lot. And from Queen Victoria on to Queen Mary, this biography by James Pope Hennessy, buddy read with Leah, and this is chunky. Really looking forward to getting started on this. And the book that Hannah of Hannah's Books, Hannah Joyner, co-authored with Susan Birch, Unspeakable, The Story of Junius Wilson, a buddy read with Brian of Bookish and Justin of Ghost Reader. And how could I forget Roz of Scallydandling About the Books? Get started on that this week. I don't know if I will start anything else off my nonfiction / Indigathon TBR. I forgot to mention Indigathon when I started this little spiel about what I'm going to be reading, but I'm also participating in Indigathon. I may start other stuff, but those are the ones I need to get started because they're chunky and because they're for buddy reads. None of you have heard about this except my buddy reader for it. I'm going to be starting a humongous anthology of short stories as a buddy read with Joe Smith starting next week. Look at this beautiful book, The Golden Age of British Short Stories, 1890 to 1914, edited by the novelist Philip Hensher. that. Just came out a couple of weeks ago. I special ordered it here in Tokyo from a politically correct source, and it's actually just under 600 pages. There's 34 stories here, so this will take the better part of a year for Joe and I to read our way through it, and I can't wait. The first story is by Rudyard Kipling. I don't think I've read one thing the man ever wrote. That will soon be rectified. I love short stories. I haven't read a lot of short stories from what is apparently the golden age of the British short story. We'll find out what that's all about. Stay tuned. Look at that cover. And I'm starting another short story buddy read. Honkin' Big Collected Stories by Joyce Carol Oates. It is called High Lonesome, New and Selected Stories, 1966 to 2006, and it's almost 1,000 pages. This is a buddy read with Will. Will used to have a channel, but it's been so long, and I didn't know him when he had a channel, and I can't even find his channel now. So I will tell you that the next time I mention this buddy read, because you should check out his now defunct channel, but I just don't know what it's called. But Will and I will be doing a buddy read, one story a week, and this has, I don't know, 50 stories? I'm not sure. So it's going to be a long haul buddy read, and I haven't read any Joyce Carol Oates short stories. And finally, I finished the audiobook, so it's still warm enough that I'm doing a lot of walking, so that's when I do my audio booking. And I have a couple bookmarked that I have previewed them enough to know that I like the audio narration. A 3-minute preview of an audio narrator isn't enough. I sometimes get tired of an audio narrator's voice after a time, so it's a very special, rare thing for me to connect enough to actually finish a book, which is why I don't do nearly as many audiobooks as I used to. I've kind of gotten away from it. Jill McCorkle, her novel called Hieroglyphics, and I don't know anything about her. I think I saw something on Twitter about it. It's narrated by G. Sands, and I've done one novel by G. Sands. It was long ago enough that I have forgotten that novel, because sometimes I can't follow an audio narrator that I love from one book to the next because the voice takes me back into the atmosphere of the previous book, and I can't really get into the new novel. I am so weird about audiobooks, but I don't remember what that audiobook was, and it's been 4 years. Anyway, Hieroglyphics. Jill McCorkle is an American novelist. That's all I know about her. And this one is a new release this summer. It's about a young couple who met and bonded as very young lovers and husband and wife over the grief of having lost a parent young. And then many, many years later, they retire from Boston to North Carolina. That's all that I have gleaned from a cursory glance at the synopsis on Scribd, but I liked the narration. I'm going to give it a try. I have others in line if that one doesn't take, but I won't take any more of your valuable time to tell you about backups, because I've been chatting and chatting and chatting. Whew! I'm just so excited to be alive and reading at the end of October in the year 2020. Let's keep our fingers crossed that everybody is feeling as energized about the result of the U.S. election by this time next week. Thanks for watching.